4 minutes and 19 seconds. That was all it took to turn 8 years of being the good daughter into a joke. I had transferred $384,000 to my family, only to catch them calling me a weeping ATM. They did not know I was listening. I did not scream or beg. I sent one single line of text. And from that second on, their world began to crumble exactly how I wanted it to. My name is Emery Parker. I am 33 years old, and I am a senior risk analyst at Stonegate Meridian Advisory. My office is located on the 42nd floor of a glass obelisk in downtown Denver, a place where the air is filtered to a sterile chill and the only sound is the hum of servers processing millions of dollars in seconds. I have spent my entire adult life calculating the probability of disaster for other people. I assess liabilities. I predict market fractures. I look for the hairline cracks in the foundation of a corporation before the ceiling collapses. It is a profession that requires a complete detachment from emotion and an absolute loyalty to the data, if the numbers say a company is rotting from the inside. I write the report, sign my name, and watch the stock plummet. I am good at it because I do not flinch. I am good at it because I believe that if you look closely enough, the truth is always visible in the ledger. It was Tuesday. The time was 9:58 at night. The office was a cavern of shadows and blue light. The overheads dimmed to energy-saving mode, leaving me in a pool of illumination from my triple-monitor setup. I should have been at home. I should have been asleep. But the quarterly risk review was due in 48 hours, and I was chasing a 0.04% discrepancy in a client's portfolio. My eyes were burning, dry from 12 hours of staring at spreadsheets, but I could not stop. That was the discipline my father, Gordon, had always praised. He called it grit. I called it survival. My phone vibrated against the mahogany veneer of my desk. The sound was sharp, aggressive in the silence. I ignored it for the first 2 buzzes, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, mind deep in a pivot table. It buzzed a 3rd time. I exhaled, a long, controlled breath, and glanced at the screen. It was a text from my sister, Jenna. The notification preview was short. You need to hear this. Don't freak out. Below the text was a file attachment, an audio clip, 2 minutes and 14 seconds long. I frowned. Jenna did not send me work-related things. She did not send me warnings. Jenna sent me links to clothes she could not afford, photos of her latest spiritual awakening retreat in Sedona, or vague requests for cash masked as birthday ideas for Mom. We were not close. Not in the way sisters in movies were close. We were bound by blood and the shared orbital pull of our parents. But our worlds rarely touched. She was the free spirit. I was the anchor. She was the kite. I was the line. I picked up the phone. My hand was steady. I had no reason to be afraid. I assumed it was some family drama, perhaps a neighbor dispute or a voicemail from a bill collector she wanted me to handle. I tapped the play button, the sound that filled my quiet, sterile office was the clatter of silverware on porcelain. The fidelity was surprisingly high. Jenna must have had her phone face down on the table, right in the center of the action. I recognized the ambient noise immediately. It was the dining room of my parents' house. I could hear the hum of the vintage refrigerator I had paid to repair last summer. I could hear the scrape of the heavy oak chairs against the hardwood floor I had paid to refinish 3 years ago. Then, my mother's voice cut through the static. Darlene Parker. Her voice was warm, the kind of voice that usually accompanied a plate of cookies or a hug, but the tone was wrong. It was loose, lubricated by wine, and thick with a mockery I had never heard directed at me. She thinks we are proud of her, my mother said. There was a smile in the audio, audible and terrifying. She honestly thinks that every time she calls, she waits for it, like a dog waiting for a treat. I stopped breathing. The cursor on my middle monitor blinked, a steady, rhythmic pulse. "Come on, Dar," my father's voice rumbled. Gordon, the man who had taught me to ride a bike, the man whose approval I had spent 3 decades trying to earn. "Don't be mean. The girl tries." "I am not being mean," my mother retorted, and I heard the slosh of liquid being poured into a glass. I am being realistic. We are proud of her. Gordon, we are proud of her deposits. Laughter. It erupted from the speaker, sharp and raucous. It wasn't just my mother. It was all of them. That is terrible, Jenna said. But she was laughing too. Her voice was high, breathless. You guys are terrible. If she heard this, she would literally die. She won't hear it, my father said. His voice was dismissive, heavy with the confidence of a man who had never been held accountable. Emery is not curious. She is obedient. That is her whole personality. You tell her to jump. She asks how high. You tell her the family needs money. She asks where to send the check. She is a good soldier. A good soldier with a bad haircut, Jenna added, and the laughter spiked again. My finger hovered over the pause button, but I did not press it. I could not move. It felt as if the temperature in my office had dropped 20 degrees in a single second. I sat in my ergonomic chair, surrounded by the trappings of my success, the view of the city, the expensive suit, the awards on the shelf, and I felt entirely hollowed out. Serious question, though, Jenna's voice came back, clearer this time, as if she leaned in. How long do you think we can keep this going? She has to notice eventually. Right, I mean, she is an analyst. That is literally her job, to analyze things. She analyzes what is in front of her, my mother said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that carried perfectly through the microphone. She never looks at us. She is too busy trying to buy our love to realize we sold it to her a long time ago. As long as I tell her she is the glue holding this family together, she will keep writing checks. She needs to be the savior. It feeds her ego. God, that is pathetic, Jenna said. How long until she cracks? Who cares, my father said, accompanied by the sound of a fork hitting a plate. Pass the potatoes. The audio ended. The silence that rushed back into the room was deafening. It pressed against my eardrums, heavier than water. I stared at the phone screen. The little triangle indicating the play button had turned back into a pause symbol. 2 minutes and 14 seconds. That was the duration of my execution. My hands were cold. Not just cool, but freezing, as if the blood had been drained from my extremities to protect my vital organs. I felt a wave of nausea roll through my stomach, violent and sudden, but I swallowed it down. I did not scream. I did not throw the phone against the ballistic glass of the window. I did not put my head in my hands and weep for the little girl who just wanted her daddy to be proud. I was a senior risk analyst. When a dataset presented an anomaly, you did not cry about it. You verified it. I reached out and tapped the play button again. I forced myself to listen. I forced myself to hear the pitch of my mother's laughter, to analyze the cadence of my father's dismissal. I listened to Jenna's betrayal, the way she offered me up as the punchline to a joke I was financing. I listened to the entire clip a second time. The shock began to recede, replaced by something else, a clarity. A cold, crystalline sharpness that usually only came to me when I was deep in a complex financial model. I played it a third time. This time, I opened a blank document on my right monitor. I did not title it. I just began to type. 0 minutes, 12 seconds. Mother confirms financial motivation. Phrase used. Proud of her deposits. 0 minutes, 45 seconds. Father confirms perception of my character. Keywords obedient, not curious. Good soldier. 1 minute, 10 seconds. Mother admits to emotional manipulation. Strategy identified. Validation used as currency to ensure continued funding. 1 minute, 30 seconds. Sister acknowledges the deception. Tone amusement. Risk assessment. She considers the probability of discovery low. I typed until the audio ended. The act of transcription converted the pain into data. Data could be managed. Data could be leveraged. Data was not a knife in the back. It was a weapon in the hand. I looked at the phone again. Why had Jenna sent this? The text said, "You need to hear this. Don't freak out." If she was truly disgusted by them, she would have called me. She would have stopped the conversation. She would have walked out of the room. But she hadn't. She had recorded it. She had laughed. She had participated. I analyzed the variable Jenna, my younger sister, 27 years old, currently finding herself for the 5th time since college, unemployed, living in the guest cottage behind my parents' house, a renovation I had paid for. Jenna thrived on chaos. She was bored. This wasn't a warning. This was entertainment. She was poking the bear to see if it would roar. She wanted a reaction. She wanted to see the explosion. She thought I would call her crying, asking her what to do, giving her the power of being the comforting sister, the one in the know. She wanted to be the main character in the drama of my collapse. She had no idea who she was dealing with. She thought she was texting her big sister, the pushover. She forgot she was texting the woman who determined the financial viability of multinational mergers. I minimized the document and opened a browser tab. I navigated to my bank's website. The login was automatic. My dashboard loaded in seconds, displaying my checking account, my savings, and my investment portfolio. I clicked on the tab labeled Transfers Payments. There it was. A recurring transfer set for the first of every month. The label I had typed in myself 8 years ago, with a heart full of filial duty. Family support. The amount was substantial. It was enough to pay the mortgage on a large house in the suburbs. It was enough to lease a luxury car. It was enough to fund a retirement. Over 8 years. That number had compounded. I did the mental math, adding in the emergency wires, the medical bills I never saw invoices for, the tuition for courses Jenna never finished, the car repairs, the roof leaks. My mother had said they were proud of my deposits. I looked at the number on the screen. It wasn't just money. It was my life. It was the vacations I didn't take. It was the apartment I didn't buy because I wanted to keep my liquidity high for them. It was the overtime I worked, the nights I spent in this office while they sat at that oak table and laughed at me. I was not a daughter. I was a resource. I was a mine they were stripping bare, and they were laughing because the mine kept apologizing for not producing enough gold. My heart rate slowed. The coldness in my hands spread to my chest, settling there like a heavy stone. It was a relief, in a way. Confusion is painful. Hope is painful. But the truth is just geometry. It has hard lines and clear angles. There is no ambiguity in a zero. I picked up my phone. Jenna's message was still on the screen. The cursor in the reply box blinked, waiting. I could call them. I could scream. I could drive over there right now, 90 minutes down the highway, and kick down the door. I could demand an explanation, but that is what the obedient daughter would do. That is what the emotional wreck they described would do. She would crack. She would make a scene. She would give them exactly what they wanted, the satisfaction of knowing they had hurt me. And then, eventually, the opportunity to gaslight me into apologizing for eavesdropping. No, I was a risk analyst, and I had just identified a catastrophic vulnerability in my personal operating system. You do not argue with a vulnerability. You eliminate it. I did not want their apologies. I did not want their explanations. I wanted them to feel exactly what I was feeling. I wanted the ground to disappear beneath their feet. I wanted to turn off the lights and watch them stumble in the dark. They thought I was a machine, fine. I would show them how a machine worked. A machine does not forgive. A machine executes the command. I typed 3 words. I did not use an exclamation point. I did not use an emoji. Then watch me. I hit send. I watched the little delivered indicator appear. Then, I placed the phone face down on the desk. I stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. Denver sprawled out below me, a grid of amber and white lights stretching to the invisible horizon of the mountains. It was beautiful and cold and indifferent, just like the woman reflected in the glass. I looked at my reflection. My suit was crisp. My hair was pulled back in a tight, professional bun, the bad haircut Jenna had mocked. My face was pale, but my eyes were dark and dry. I did not look like a victim. I looked like someone who had just closed a ledger. They were still at that table, probably pouring another glass of wine, perhaps checking their phones, unaware that the tectonic plates of their existence had just shifted. They were laughing. They were celebrating their cleverness, their exploitation of the good soldier. I pressed my hand against the cool glass. "Laugh while you can," I whispered to the empty office. My voice did not tremble. "How long will you keep laughing?" The city did not answer, but I already knew the answer. I turned back to my desk, sat down, and unlocked my computer. I had a lot of work to do, and for the first time in 8 years, none of it was for them. The audit had begun. It started with a transmission. That was the first brick in the wall I built around myself. A wall made of bank transfers and silence. It was 8 years ago. I had just landed my first real job as a junior analyst. The pay was not spectacular, but to a 25-year-old who had spent the previous 2 years eating ramen and worrying about student loans, it felt like a fortune. I had received my second paycheck. I remember staring at the balance in my account, feeling a rare, fluttering sense of safety. Then the phone rang. It was my mother. She was crying, not the soft, stifled weeping of someone trying to be strong, but the loud, gasping sobs of a woman at the end of her rope. The transmission on their 10-year-old sedan had blown. Dad could not get to work without the car. If he could not get to work, he would lose his shift hours. If he lost his hours, they would miss the mortgage payment. It was a domino effect of catastrophe. Narrated between ragged breaths, she needed $1,200. I did not hesitate. I felt a surge of adrenaline, a desperate need to be the hero. I was the one who had made it out. I was the one with the corporate job in the city. I transferred the money within 10 minutes. "You saved us," she had whispered into the phone after the confirmation came through. "You are the only good thing that has happened to us in years. Emery, you are my pride." That phrase, "you are my pride," became the drug I was addicted to. And like any addiction, the price went up while the high got shorter. Over the next 96 months, the definition of family support expanded like a gas filling a room. It started with emergencies. The water heater exploded. The roof leaked after a storm. Then, it shifted to health. My father developed a back condition that the insurance allegedly refused to cover completely. There were co-pays, specialist visits, and prescriptions that cost hundreds of dollars a month. I never saw a bill. I never asked to see a medical report. To ask for proof felt like an accusation. You do not audit your parents' pain. You just pay to make it go away. Then came the bridge loans. Dad's hours at the plant were reduced, or so they said. They needed a few thousand to float them until the next quarter. Then it was Jenna's turn. Jenna, who could not decide if she wanted to be a graphic designer, a yoga instructor, or a life coach. I paid for 3 semesters of community college she never finished. I paid for a certification course in holistic nutrition she abandoned after 3 weeks because the instructor had bad energy. "It is an investment in her future," Mom would say. "She just needs a little push. Not everyone is as strong as you." Emery, that was the trap. By complimenting my strength, they obligated me to carry their weakness. I looked around my office, the ghost of those transactions haunting the room. For 8 years, I lived a half-life to afford the constant hemorrhage of cash to my family. I shrank my own existence down to the barest essentials. I lived in a 400-square-foot studio apartment in a neighborhood where I had to carry pepper spray when I walked from the bus stop. My furniture was second-hand, scavenged from marketplace listings. I ate meal-prepped rice and beans for lunch while my colleagues ordered sushi. I wore the same 3 blazers for 5 years, rotating them so people would not notice the fraying cuffs. I never took a vacation. Not once. When my coworkers flew to Cabo or went skiing in Aspen, I stayed in the city, picking up extra contract work to replenish the savings account my family had just drained. Meanwhile, life in my parents' house seemed to be flourishing. I remembered visiting for Thanksgiving 2 years ago. The driveway had been repaved. There was a new 60-inch television mounted on the living room wall. My mother was wearing a designer handbag she claimed it was a super fake. She got at a flea market for $20. But the leather smelled rich and authentic. When I asked about the renovations, Dad shrugged and said he was doing the work himself with materials he scrounged up. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that their sudden bouts of poverty were just bad luck, not a lifestyle funded by my paycheck. And then there was Jenna. While I was counting pennies to buy generic ibuprofen, Jenna was finding herself in Costa Rica. She posted photos on social media of acai bowls that cost $15 and sunsets viewed from infinity pools. When I asked how she afforded it, Mom told me Jenna was working at the hostel or volunteering, yet, inevitably, I would get a call a week later. Jenna was stuck at the border. Jenna had her wallet stolen. Jenna needed a plane ticket home because of a medical emergency that turned out to be a bad sunburn. I paid. I always paid. But the analyst in me, the part of my brain that I suppressed when it came to family, had started to notice a correlation. It was a pattern so statistically significant that if I had seen it in a client's portfolio, I would have flagged it for fraud immediately. Every time I got a raise, a bonus, or a tax refund, a crisis occurred within 72 hours. 3 years ago, I was promoted to lead analyst. I called Mom to tell her the good news, mentioning the 10% salary bump. 2 days later, the furnace died and needed a complete replacement. Last year, I received a performance bonus of $5,000. The next morning, Mom called, frantic, saying Dad owed back taxes and the IRS was threatening a lien, the amount they needed. Exactly $4,800. It was not bad luck. It was extraction. I had been feeding them data, and they had been adjusting their demands to match my capacity. I was not a daughter. I was a host organism. I remembered a conversation from just 4 months ago. I had been tired, worn down by a grueling audit season. I had hinted to my mother that things were tight, that I might need to skip the monthly allowance for once so I could fix my own car. Her voice had turned ice cold. Emery, you know we rely on that. Your father is frail. If you stop now, the stress will kill him. Do you want that on your conscience if you stop? This family falls apart. If you stop, this family falls apart. I sat up straight in my ergonomic chair, the silence of the office pressing against my ears. That sentence had been a threat. It wasn't a plea for help. It was a hostage negotiation. They knew I valued the idea of family more than I valued my own comfort. They held the concept of us hostage, and I paid the ransom every single month. I opened my laptop. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a rage so cold it felt like hypothermia. I opened a fresh spreadsheet. I did not title it. Budget or expenses. I typed in all caps. Parker family outgoings, 8 years. I began to work backward. I pulled up my bank history. Year by year, current year, the emergency dental surgery for Dad, $6,000. Last year, the roof repair, $8,000. Jenna's business startup loan, $5,000. The year before, the car transmission again, $4,000. I entered the recurring monthly transfers, $500 a month at the start. Then $800, then $1,200, then $1,500 as my salary grew. I added the loans that were never repaid. I added the plane tickets. I added the credit card bills I paid off because Mom didn't understand how interest worked. The columns grew long. The scroll bar shrank. I categorized them: maintenance, medical, education, miscellaneous crisis. There were transactions here I had blocked out. A $2,000 transfer to a contractor I had never met. A $3,000 withdrawal in cash that I physically handed to my father in a diner parking lot because he said he owed money to bad people and didn't want a paper trail. I had believed him. I had been terrified for him. Now, looking at the spreadsheet, I wondered if those mind people were just a travel agent or a boat dealership. I reached the bottom of the sheet. I created a summation formula. I pressed enter. The number appeared in bold black text. $383,942. I stared at it. I blinked, hoping the decimal point was in the wrong place. It wasn't. Almost $384,000. Nausea rolled over me again. That was a house. That was a fully funded retirement account. That was the freedom to quit this high-stress job and open the bakery I used to dream about. That was my life, liquidated and siphoned into a black hole of ingratitude. And what did I have to show for it? A text message from my sister laughing at my bad haircut. A recording of my mother mocking my desperate need for validation. A father who called me a good soldier while he spent my labor on God knows what. I was not the favorite child. I was not the beloved daughter. I was the golden goose, and they were plucking my feathers one by one, laughing as I shivered in the cold. I looked at the number again. It wasn't just money. It was a receipt for a fake relationship. I had paid nearly $400,000 to be loved, and the product had never been delivered. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I highlighted the total. Then, I created a new tab. I needed to see where the money went, not where they said it went, but where it actually went. Because looking at this list, seeing the sheer volume of cash, I realized something else. Their house was modest. Their cars were average. They didn't wear Rolexes. Even with Jenna's travel and the new TV, the math didn't work. You don't burn through nearly $400,000 on just lifestyle creep in a small town without it being obvious. Where was the rest of it? I looked at the recurring transfers again. For the last 3 years, the family support checks hadn't gone to my mother's primary checking account. She had asked me to send them to a different account, claiming it was a high-yield savings she set up to manage the medical bills better. I had never verified the account holder. I just copied the routing number she gave me. I felt the cold precision of the auditor taking over completely now. The hurt was still there, but it was being sealed away behind a wall of forensic curiosity. I was going to find every cent. I saved the file. Parker family outgoings. The first step of the audit was complete. I had identified the loss. Now, I had to identify the fraud. I looked out the window at the Denver skyline one last time. The city lights were blurry through the tears I refused to let fall. "Okay," I said to the empty room. "You want to treat me like a bank? Then let's balance the books." The digital clock on the corner of my monitor read 2:14 in the morning. The cleaning crew had come and gone hours ago, their vacuum cleaners humming a low lullaby that I had ignored. Now, the 42nd floor was a tomb. The only light came from the glow of my screens, casting long, unnatural shadows against the back wall of my office. I was not tired. My body had bypassed exhaustion and entered a state of hyper-alertness, the kind of manic focus that usually hit me during a forensic audit of a failing company. But this time, the failing entity was not a corporation. It was my own history. I had the master spreadsheet open. Parker family outgoings. It was a grid of red ink that spanned 8 years. I began to apply filters, my fingers flying across the keyboard with the muscle memory of a decade in risk analysis. I needed to categorize the hemorrhage. I needed to see the anatomy of the lie. First, I filtered for recurring transfers. These were the baseline, the rent for the existence of Emery Parker in the family ecosystem. That column was steady, rising incrementally every year like a tax hike. Next, I created a category for emergency urgent. This was where the data began to scream. I cross-referenced the dates of these emergencies with my own payroll data. The correlation coefficient was nearly perfect. It was almost beautiful in its mathematical cruelty. October 15th. 2 years ago, I received a retention bonus of $10,000. October 17th. 2 years ago. My mother called. A tree had supposedly fallen on the garage. The repair cost $8,500. March 1st. Last year I received my tax refund. March 3rd. Last year Jenna had a health scare that required out-of-pocket testing. The cost absorbed 80% of my refund. It was algorithmic. They were not just asking for help when they needed it. They were monitoring my financial intakes and creating deficits to match them. They were skimming the cream off the top of my life before I could even taste it. I drilled deeper. I sorted the data by recipient account number for the first 5 years. The money went to a single account, my mother's personal checking. That was standard. Then, 3 years ago. The destination changed. A new routing number appeared. My mother had told me she switched banks for better interest rates. I had updated the transfer details without a second thought. But as I looked at the raw metadata of the transactions, I noticed a third stream. There were sporadic transfers, large ones, usually the emergency funds that went to a completely different account number. It was within the same bank, but the suffix was different. It wasn't a personal checking suffix. It looked like a business checking suffix. I frowned, leaning closer to the screen. The recipient name on these transfers was truncated in the bank statement view. It just read PHS LLC. I had never sent money to a company called PHS LLC. I had sent money to my father's contractor via my mother. I had sent money for medical bills via my mother. I opened my archived emails. I searched for beneficiary and change. Hundreds of results, mostly corporate spam. But there, buried in the trash folder from 3 years ago, was a notification from my bank. Subject: confirmation of recipient modification. I opened it. The email was brief. It confirmed that I had authorized a change in the primary recipient for my family support recurring transfer. I remembered that day. I was in a meeting with the board of directors. My mother had texted me 3 times, saying the old account was compromised and I needed to switch to the new one immediately or the mortgage would bounce. I had done it on my phone under the table, barely reading the details. The new beneficiary name listed in the email wasn't Darlene Parker. It was Parker Home Solutions. I stared at the name. Parker Home Solutions. What was that? My father was a retired factory foreman. My mother was a housewife. Jenna was unemployed. We did not have a family business. We did not have solutions. The unease in my gut sharpened into a physical pain. This was not just mooching. This was structuring. This was money laundering on a micro scale. I needed a second set of eyes. Not just any eyes, but eyes that saw the world as a series of liabilities and legal exposure. I picked up my phone. It was 2:30 in the morning. I scrolled to a contact I had not called in months, simply because I had been too busy working to pay for my family's lifestyle. Sasha Moreno. Sasha was a shark. We had met in grad school, bonding over our mutual hatred of inefficient systems and our shared inability to suffer fools. She was now a partner at a boutique firm specializing in high-stakes financial disputes. She slept 4 hours a night and ate stress for breakfast. I dialed. It rang twice. Parker, Sasha's voice rasped. She sounded awake. I could hear the click of a keyboard in the background. You are calling me at 2:30. Either you have been arrested, or you are finally ready to bury a body. Which is it? I need you to listen to something, I said. My voice sounded foreign to my own ears, hollow, metallic. Send it, she said. I forwarded the audio file Jenna had sent me. Give me 2 minutes, Sasha said. The line went silent, though she didn't hang up. I sat in the dark, listening to the silence of the connection. I imagined Sasha in her loft, wearing silk pajamas and reading glasses, her face illuminated by the blue light of her laptop. I waited for the explosion. I waited for her to gasp, to tell me how awful they were. 2 minutes and 14 seconds later, Sasha came back on the line. Okay, she said. Her tone was terrifyingly calm. It was the voice she used when she found the smoking gun in a deposition. Emery, I have a question, and I need you to answer it honestly. Do not give me the good daughter answer. Give me the risk analyst answer. Okay, I whispered. Do you want the truth? Sasha asked. Or do you want to win? I looked at the spreadsheet. I looked at the sum of $384,000. I looked at the name Parker Home Solutions. I want to burn it down, I said. And I want to watch it burn. Good, Sasha said. Because what I just heard is not a family squabble. That is admission of financial exploitation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraud, and possibly conspiracy, depending on how deep the little sister is involved. Jenna thinks it is a game, I said. Jenna is an accessory, Sasha corrected. Now, listen to me. Do not confront them yet. Do not scream at them. Do not send them angry paragraphs. You are a vault. You are a black box. I sent one text, I admitted. I told them to watch me. Fine. Dramatic, but fine. It buys us time, because they will think you are just sulking. Now, I need you to gather everything. I want metadata for that audio file to prove it hasn't been doctored. I want screenshots of every text message where they asked for money, every sob story, every emergency, and I want that spreadsheet you are inevitably building right now. I have it, I said. Sasha, it is $384,000. There was a pause on the line, a long, heavy pause. 384, Sasha repeated, measuring the weight of the number. Emery, that is grand larceny levels of cash. That is not helping out. That is a heist. I found something else, I said, my eyes scanning the rows of data. There are transfers to an entity called Parker Home Solutions, and there is something worse. I scrolled down to the section I had labeled Fees Miscellaneous. I am looking at my statement from 4 years ago, I said. There is a debit for $300. The description says, Loan repayment. Ref 8842. I never took out a loan. Sasha, I have zero debt. I pay my credit cards in full every month. Is it recurring? Sasha asked sharply. No, I said, scrolling down. It is sporadic, once every few months. Loan repayment. The reference number is always the same. It is linked to my main checking account, the one I use for the family transfers. They are paying a debt using your account directly, Sasha said, her voice dropping lower. It is not a transfer. It is a direct debit, which means my name is on the loan, I finished, the realization hitting me like a physical blow to the chest. Or they used my account information to set up an auto pay for their loan. If your name is on the loan, that is identity theft, Sasha said. If they just used your account number, that is unauthorized use of funds. Either way, it is a felony. I felt the room spin slightly. It was one thing to be guilt-tripped into giving money. It was another thing entirely to be robbed. I need to know what that loan is for, I said. We will find out, Sasha promised. But Emery, you need to understand what is about to happen. You are about to cut off their oxygen. They are not going to react like rational adults. They are going to react like addicts going through withdrawal. I don't care, I said. You should, Sasha countered, because when the money stops, the character assassination begins. They will not say, "Oh, we are sorry we stole from you." They will say, "Emery is unstable." They will say, "Emery is having a breakdown." They will try to destroy your credibility so that if you ever take this public or legal, you look like the crazy one. I remembered my mother's voice in the audio recording. She thinks we are proud of her. We are proud of her deposits. Let them try, I said. I have the receipts. Receipts are good, Sasha said, but strategy is better. I am coming to your office tomorrow for lunch. We are going to paper this whole thing. We are going to document every cent, every lie, every date. We are going to build a file so thick that if they try to sue you for support, the judge will laugh them out of court. Sasha, I said, my voice breaking for the first time. Why did they do this? Why didn't they just ask? Because, Sasha said softly, predators do not ask. Emery, they hunt, and you were the easiest prey because you loved them. The word love hung in the air, toxic and heavy. Get some sleep, Sasha ordered. Or don't, but do not call them. Silence is your weapon right now. Let them sit in it. Let them wonder what "watch me" means. I will see you tomorrow, I said. I hung up the phone. The office was silent again. I looked at the line item on the screen, loan repayment. Reference 8842. I copied the reference number. I opened a new tab and pasted it into a search bar. Just to see. Nothing came up. It was an internal bank reference, but the prefix looked familiar. I cross-referenced it with a list of local lenders. It matched a small credit union in the county where my parents lived. My heart hammered against my ribs. They had opened a credit line. Maybe in their name, maybe in mine. but they were using my blood and sweat to service it. I closed the laptop. The click of the lid latching sounded like the cocking of a gun. Sasha was right. They would come for my reputation. They would paint me as the hysterical, ungrateful daughter. They would tell the aunts and uncles that I had abandoned them. They would weaponize the very obedience they had mocked. I stood up and walked to the closet where I kept my spare blazer. I pulled it on. It was armor. I was not going home to my empty apartment. I was going to stay here. I was going to finish the quarterly risk review for the client. And then I was going to finish the risk review for the Parker family. I walked to the window and looked out at the sleeping city. "You want a war," I whispered to the invisible reflection of my family. "I will give you a war, but do not expect me to pay for the ammunition this time." The sun rose over Denver at 6:18 in the morning. It was a harsh, unforgiving light that exposed the dust motes dancing in my office air. I had not gone home. I had spent the last 4 hours systematically dismantling the financial architecture of my life. I sat before my screens, my eyes gritty but wide open. In the world of risk analysis, we call this containment. When a breach is detected, you do not wait to see how much more data will leak. You sever the connection. You isolate the node. You kill the feed. I started with the passwords. For a decade, I had used variations of the same password for my banking, my email, and my investment accounts. It was a sentimental string of characters based on the street address of my childhood home. The irony was not lost on me. The very place where they were currently sleeping, comfortable and funded by my labor, was the key I had used to unlock my vault for them. I changed them all. I generated complex, 20-character strings of alphanumeric gibberish that had no emotional tether. I enabled two-factor authentication on everything. From now on, if anyone wanted to access my life, they would need my fingerprint and a code that expired in 30 seconds. Then came the credit cards. I logged into the portal for my primary rewards card. There were 2 authorized users listed below my name, Darlene Parker and Jenna Parker. I stared at the names. I remembered adding them. Mom had said it was for groceries in case of emergency. Jenna had said she needed it to build her credit score. I had agreed because I wanted to be helpful. I wanted to be the safety net. I clicked the Remove User button next to my mother's name. The system asked me to confirm. "Are you sure this card will no longer be valid immediately?" I clicked yes. I did the same for Jenna. Then, I navigated to the transfers page. This was the main artery. This was the recurring monthly payment labeled Family Support. It was scheduled to deploy in 3 days. On the 1st of the month, $2,000, sent automatically to the account that now fed Parker Home Solutions. My finger hovered over the mouse. For 8 years, I had believed this transfer was the price of admission to a family. I thought it was love expressed in currency, but after last night, after the audio recording, I knew what it really was. It was a subscription fee to a lie. I clicked Cancel Recurring Transfer. The screen refreshed. The line item vanished. It was done. There was no sound, no explosion, just a silent digital acknowledgement that the gravy train had derailed. At 8:30, the bank's customer service line opened. I dialed immediately. "Thank you for calling Stonegate Private Banking. This is Marcus. How can I help you today?" "Ms. Parker." "Good morning, Marcus," I said. My voice was clipped, devoid of the usual pleasantries. "I am reviewing my transaction history and I see several transfers to an entity called Parker Home Solutions. I need to know exactly who the signatory is on that receiving account. It is within your bank, correct?" "One moment, please. Let me verify security." We went through the protocols. My mother's maiden name, my first pet. The answers tasted like ash in my mouth because they were all tied to the people I was investigating. "Okay, Ms. Parker," Marcus said after a minute. "Yes, that is an internal business account. The primary account holder is Darlene Parker." "And the business structure?" I asked. "It is listed as a limited liability company," Marcus replied. "Do you not recognize this entity?" "I am clarifying my records," I lied. "Marcus, Is my name associated with that account in any way? There was a pause, the sound of typing. You are not a signatory, Marcus said. However, you are listed as let me see here, you are listed as a key associated person in the original formation document submitted to the bank 3 years ago. It looks like your credit profile was used as a guarantor for the initial overdraft protection facility. The air left my lungs. I see, I said. I was not breathing. I did not sign those documents. Marcus? Oh, Marcus said. The professional warmth dropped from his voice, replaced by alert caution. If you are alleging fraud, Ms. Parker, we can freeze the account pending an investigation. Not yet, I said quickly. If I froze it now, they would know I knew. I needed them to panic first. I needed them to show their hand. I just wanted to confirm the status. Do not freeze it, but please note that I am formally contesting my association with that entity as of this morning. Noted, Marcus said. Is there anything else? Yes. Block any future incoming transfers from my accounts to that routing number, permanently. Consider it done. I hung up. Parker Home Solutions, an LLC, my phone pinged. It was Sasha. She had been busy. Attached, Secretary of State filing. Parker Home Solutions, LLC. I opened the PDF. There it was. Organized 3 years ago. Registered Agent Darlene Parker. Purpose of Business Consulting and Property Management. I scrolled to the bottom. In the section for Managers or Members, there were 2 names. Darlene Parker, and underneath, listed as a non-voting member, Emery Parker. They had put my name on a company I didn't know existed. Why to use my credit rating? To make the business look legitimate to lenders. I was not just their ATM. I was their collateral. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a notification from my bank app. Transaction declined. The Ivory Hanger. $342.50. Reason card. Inactive. It had started. I looked at the time. 10:15 in the morning. Jenna was awake, Jenna was shopping, and Jenna had just been publicly embarrassed at the counter of a boutique. I stared at the phone. I imagined the scene, the cashier holding the card. The polite but firm refusal, Jenna's flushed face. She would try it again. She would assume it was a chip error. Then she would try to call the bank. But she wouldn't have the security answers because I had changed them all. 10 minutes later, the phone rang. The screen displayed Mom. I let it ring 3 times. I took a sip of cold coffee. I adjusted my headset. Then, I answered. Hello? Emery. My mother's voice was high. Tight. It was the voice she used when she was trying to sound casual but was actually furious. Are you at work? Yes, I said. I am in the middle of a report. Well, I am sorry to bother you, she said. But Jenna just called me in a panic. She is at a store and your card isn't working. She is standing there with a line of people behind her. Emery, it is humiliating. The card is not working, I asked. My tone was flat. No, it is declining, she snapped, dropping the pretense. Did you forget to pay the bill? You know how sensitive Jenna is. She is literally crying in her car right now. Fix it, please. Call the bank and tell them to authorize it. I cannot do that, I said. What do you mean you can't? Her voice rose an octave. Just call them. Tell them it is a mistake. It is not a mistake, I said. I closed the cards. Silence. Absolute, heavy silence. You what? I closed the authorized user cards, I repeated. I am restructuring my finances. Restructuring, she laughed. A nervous, jagged sound. Emery, what are you talking about? You can't just cut your sister off without warning. She relies on that for gas, for food. $342 at a boutique is not gas or food. Mother, I said. That is not the point, she shouted. The point is you embarrassed her. You embarrassed us. Why would you do this? I looked at the spreadsheet on my screen. I looked at the $384,000 total. I am doing a full audit, I said. I found some irregularities. Irregularities. Her voice went quiet. Dangerous. What kind of irregularities? The kind that require me to freeze all external outflows until I can identify the source of the hemorrhage, I said. I used the corporate language intentionally. It created distance. It made me sound like the machine they mocked. Emery, you are being ridiculous, she said. The sweetness was gone, replaced by the steel I had heard in the recording. Turn the cards back on. We can talk about your little audit later. But do not make us look poor in front of people. Do not make me ashamed of you. She thinks we're proud of her. We're proud of her deposits. I have to go, I said. I have a meeting. Do not hang up on me, she screamed. Emery Parker, if you hang up, I tapped the red button. The line went dead. My hand was trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of finally saying no. I had just severed a limb. It hurt, but it was the kind of hurt that precedes healing. I put the phone down. 2 minutes later, it vibrated again. A text message. I looked at the preview. It was not Mom. It was not Jenna. It was Dad. My father never texted. He had fingers thickened by years of manual labor, and he hated touchscreens. He usually communicated through Mom or through grunts of approval when I brought gifts. I opened the message. Don't do this. You'll ruin us. I stared at the 6 words. He didn't ask what was wrong. He didn't ask why the cards were declined. He didn't ask if I was okay. You'll ruin us. He knew. He knew exactly how fragile their house of cards was. He knew that without my monthly injection of capital, the walls would cave in, and he wasn't appealing to my love. He was appealing to my guilt. He was placing the burden of their survival squarely on my shoulders. If they fell, it would be my fault. That was the message. I did not reply. I took a screenshot of the text. I sent it to Sasha. 30 seconds later, Sasha replied, See? They are not asking, why are you hurt? They are saying, how dare you stop paying? I typed back, he says I will ruin them. Sasha's response came immediately. They ruined themselves. You just stopped buying the bricks. I put the phone in my drawer and locked it. The silence in my office felt different now. It wasn't empty. It was fortified. I had cut the line. The bomb had been diffused. Now, I just had to wait for the shockwave to hit. The silence I had purchased with my "watch me" text lasted exactly 4 hours. Then, the siege began. It did not start with my parents. They were too smart for a direct frontal assault. Instead, they sent the infantry. My phone began to light up with names I had not seen on my screen since Christmas. Aunt Linda, Cousin Mike, Uncle Robert, the flying monkeys of the Parker dynasty, unleashed to bring the wayward Dorothy back to Oz. I let the first 3 calls go to voicemail. Then, curiosity, or perhaps masochism, got the better of me. I picked up the phone when my Aunt Linda called. Linda was my mother's older sister, a woman who weaponized guilt the way a chef uses salt liberally and in everything. Emery, she breathed, her voice dripping with performative concern. Your mother just called me. She is beside herself. She says you are having an episode. An episode, I repeated, my voice steady. I was sitting in a conference room, staring at a blank whiteboard, my hand gripping the phone so hard my knuckles were white. She says you are under a lot of pressure at work, Linda continued, her tone soothing, like she was talking to a frightened animal. She says you have been acting erratic, paranoid, cutting everyone off. Honey, we know the city is stressful, but you cannot take it out on the people who love you. Family is family. You do not turn your back on blood. Did she tell you why I cut them off? I asked. She said you were confused about some money. Linda dismissed it quickly. Emery, really? Squabbling over pennies with your parents. After everything they sacrificed to raise you, it is beneath you. Just call her. Apologize. Put this behind you before you say something you can't take back. I hung up. So that was the narrative. I wasn't the victim of a 6-figure theft. I was the unstable. Stressed out daughter, having a mental breakdown. My mother was effectively salting the earth. She was destroying my credibility preemptively, so that if I ever tried to tell the truth, Everyone would just shake their heads and say, "Poor Emery. She has been off for a while." My phone buzzed again. A text from Jenna. "What is your game plan here? You think you are tough? You gonna sue mom and dad? Good luck with that. No judge is going to side with a rich girl picking on her retired parents. You look pathetic." I read it twice. Jenna wasn't afraid. She was arrogant. She had lived under the umbrella of my parents' impunity for so long she didn't believe rain existed. She thought the family court of public opinion was the only court that mattered, and in that court, the dutiful daughter always loses to the struggling parents. But the domestic skirmish was about to spill over into the one place I thought was safe. At 11:30 in the morning, an email landed in my work inbox. It was flagged with a high-priority red exclamation mark. The sender was internal compliance. My stomach dropped. In the financial world, a message from compliance is never a casual chat. It is an indictment. Subject anonymous whistleblower report. Immediate action required. I opened it, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Ms. Parker, we have received an anonymous tip alleging financial impropriety involving your personal accounts and potential conflict of interest regarding external business entities. Please report to the Human Resources Secure Room immediately. I stared at the screen. The room blurred. They had done it. They had actually done it. They had crossed the line from emotional manipulation to professional sabotage. My mother knew how sensitive my job was. She knew that as a senior risk analyst, my integrity was my only currency. An allegation of financial impropriety, even a false one, could trigger a suspension. It could strip me of my clearance. It could end my career. I did not go to the bathroom to cry. I did not call my mother to beg her to stop. I called Sasha. "They reported me," I said the moment she picked up. "Anonymous tip to compliance. Embezzlement or conflict of interest." Those dirty Sasha stopped herself. I could hear the rustle of papers. "Okay, listen to me. This is good." "Good," I nearly shouted. "Sasha, I could lose my license." "No, you won't, because you have the data," Sasha said, her voice slicing through my panic. "This is good because they just made a tactical error. They escalated this out of the domestic sphere and into the legal sphere. They just gave you damages, actual, quantifiable damages, malicious interference with employment, libel, defamation." "I have to go to HR right now," I said. "Go," Sasha commanded. "And tell them everything. Do not hide the family drama. Frame it exactly as it is retaliation for cutting off financial support. Show them the audio transcript if you have to. Show them the spreadsheet. You are not the suspect. Emery, you are the target of a harassment campaign. Control the narrative." I walked into that HR meeting with my laptop and my head high. I spent 40 minutes laying out the truth. I showed the compliance officer the timestamp of my "watch me" text and the timestamp of the anonymous tip. I showed them the breakdown of the $384,000. I stripped myself bare of dignity to save my reputation. By the time I left, the compliance officer looked less suspicious and more horrified. She told me the investigation would remain open as a formality, but she believed me. I walked back to my desk, my legs shaking. My phone rang. It was my mother. I stared at the name, Darlene Parker, the woman who had given birth to me, the woman who had just tried to get me fired because I closed a credit card. I pressed the record button on my external dictaphone, a habit from my audit days, and placed it next to the speaker. Then I answered. "Hello? Mother? Did you get an email at work today?" Her voice was sweet, sickly sweet. It was the voice of a hostage-taker asking if the police had arrived yet. "I did," I said. Compliance was very interested in the anonymous tip. "Oh, good," she said. "I was worried they might ignore it. You know, Emery. Stress can make people do crazy things. Stealing, lying. I just want to make sure you get the help you need, even if that means stepping away from your job for a while." "Are you suggesting I quit?" I asked. "I am suggesting you come home," she said, the sweetness hardening. "I am suggesting you turn those transfers back on. Unlock the cards. And apologize to your sister. If you do that, maybe I can call them back. Tell them it was a misunderstanding, that I was confused. And if I don't, well, she sighed, then I might have to call your boss directly. Mr. Sterling, isn't it? I have his number. I found it online. I think a mother's concern carries a lot of weight. If I tell him my daughter is having a psychotic break, that she is financially unstable, that she is a risk, who do you think he will believe, the stable, loving mother or the cold, ungrateful girl who won't even talk to her family? I felt a cold calm settle over me. It was the feeling of the trap snapping shut, but she didn't realize she was the one inside it. Just so I am clear, I said, enunciating every word, you are saying that if I do not give you money, you will contact my leadership and fabricate a story about my mental health to destroy my career. Don't use those big corporate words with me, she snapped. I am saying you need to be a good daughter, or there will be consequences. You think you are powerful in that glass tower I made you. Emery, I can unmake you. I understand, I said. Thank you for clarifying. So, are you going to fix this? I am going to fix everything, I said. I hung up. I looked at the dictaphone. The red light blinked once, then went out. She had just committed extortion. It wasn't implied anymore. It was explicit. Pay me, or I burn your life down. I saved the file. I named it Exhibit A, extortion. But there was still one piece missing. The why. Why were they so desperate? Why risk a felony for a monthly transfer? Greed is a powerful motivator. But this felt like panic. You don't try to get your golden goose fired unless you are terrified the eggs are about to stop coming for a reason you can't control. I went back to the spreadsheet. I went back to Parker Home Solutions. I pulled up the loan documents Sasha had managed to scrape from public records databases using the LLC name. It was a commercial loan, taken out 3 years ago. The principal amount was $200,000. I looked at the repayment schedule outlined in the contract. Monthly payment, $2,000. $150. Due date, the 5th of every month. I looked at my own bank statements. Transfer to family support, $2,000. $200. Transfer date, the 1st of every month. The numbers aligned with the precision of a planetary eclipse. My stomach turned over. They weren't using my money for groceries. They weren't using it for repairs. They were using me to service a massive commercial debt for a business that seemingly did nothing. But here was the twist. I scrolled down to the section titled Collateral. Usually, a business loan is secured by business assets. But Parker Home Solutions had no assets. It was a shell. So what had they put up against the bank's money? I zoomed in on the PDF. Secured by deed of trust, 412 Maple Drive. My parents' house, the house I grew up in, the house they claimed was fully paid off 10 years ago, a triumph they had celebrated with a dinner I paid for. They had mortgaged the house to the hilt, and not just the house. I looked closer at the secondary collateral, assignment of rents and leases, and there, listed as a guarantor of payment, in a scrawled, forged signature that looked painfully like mine, Emery Parker. I sat back, the air rushing out of my lungs. They had borrowed $200,000 against their home to fund a lifestyle they couldn't afford, using a shell company to hide the debt. And for 3 years, I had been the one paying the mortgage on a house they swore was theirs free and clear. I was paying for the roof over their heads, and they were laughing at me for it. If I stopped paying, the loan would default. If the loan defaulted, the bank would take the house. That was the panic. That was why my father texted, "You'll ruin us." They weren't afraid of missing a dinner at a restaurant. They were afraid of foreclosure. They were afraid of being homeless. And instead of telling me, instead of asking for help to save the family home, they had tricked me into paying for it while mocking me for being obedient. They had built a trap door under their own feet, and I was the only thing holding it shut. I picked up my phone. I looked at the text from Jenna again. "You gonna sue Mom and Dad?" "No. Jenna, I am not going to sue them. That would be too slow. That would be too private. I wanted them to feel the exposure they had tried to force on me. They wanted to drag me into the light. They wanted to make a scene." "Fine," I whispered to the empty office. You want a scene? I will give you a main stage. I remembered the email my mother had sent 2 weeks ago. An invitation. The Silverbrook Community Gala. My mother was the head of the organizing committee. It was her night of glory. She had demanded I attend. She had even sent me a speech she wanted me to read, praising her sacrifice and dedication to the family. I pulled up the invitation. Date this Saturday. Time, 7 p.m. Location, Silverbrook Event Hall. I looked at the folder on my desk, the spreadsheet, the audio transcript, the loan documents, the extortion recording. I was not going to send this to a lawyer, not yet. I was going to deliver it in person. I opened my calendar. I accepted the invitation to the gala. Then, I opened the speech my mother had sent me. I deleted the text. I stared at the blank cursor blinking against the white page. I began to type. Good evening, everyone. My name is Emery Parker, and tonight, I want to talk about the cost of love. I typed until the sun went down. I typed until my fingers ached. I typed until the story was complete. They wanted me to speak, I would speak. They wanted me to be the dutiful daughter one last time I would show up. I would wear the dress. I would smile. And then, I would introduce them to the real Emery Parker, the one who kept the receipts. The venue was the Silverbrook Event Hall, a place that smelled of lilies and desperate ambition. It was the kind of establishment that charged $15 for a bottle of water and plastered gold leaf onto plaster columns to mimic European grandeur. It was perfect for my mother. It was a physical manifestation of everything she valued: a shiny, expensive surface covering a hollow, cheap interior. The event was billed as the Community Pillars Gala, a charity fundraiser my mother had organized. Ostensibly, it was to raise money for a local park renovation. In reality, it was a coronation ceremony for the Parker family image. There were going to be over 100 guests, local business owners, church deacons, neighbors, and the specific breed of suburban socialites my mother was desperate to impress. And I was the prop. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat of my car. It was the email from my mother, sent again for the 3rd time in an hour. Subject: final script. Read exactly. I opened the attachment. It was a masterpiece of fiction. She had written a speech for me to deliver. A 3-page monologue detailing her sacrifices, her unwavering support, and her matriarchal wisdom. One paragraph stood out, highlighted in bold: everything I am today, I owe to the guidance of my mother, Darlene. She taught me that money is fleeting, but family is forever. She is the wind beneath my wings, the silent architect of my success. I stared at the words. The silent architect. She was the architect. All right, she was the architect of a $384,000 sinkhole. Below the text, she had added a note in all caps: do not improvise, do not mumble, don't disappoint me. Emery. I closed the phone. I wasn't going to disappoint her. I was going to destroy her. But I wasn't going to do it alone. I looked out the window. I was parked in front of a small, neat bungalow, 3 blocks from my parents' house. This was the home of Graham Keller. Graham was 36 years old. He was a landscape architect who dealt in soil, stone, and roots, things that were real. He had grown up down the street from us. He had seen the Parker family dynamic from the periphery for 2 decades. He was the quiet observer who mowed his lawn in silence while my mother screamed at me in the driveway, only to wave and smile the second she saw him looking. He knew the difference between the billboard and the product. I walked up to his porch and knocked. Graham opened the door. He was wearing a flannel shirt covered in sawdust. He looked at me, taking in my pale face and the hard set of my jaw. Emery, he said, you look like you are going to a funeral. I am going to a gala, I said, and I need a favor. I am not wearing a tuxedo, he said immediately, crossing his arms. I don't need a date. Graham, I said. My voice was steady, stripped of any social niceties. I need a witness, he frowned, leaning against the doorframe. A witness to what? To the truth, I said. My family, they have constructed a story. Tonight, I am going to dismantle it. I am going to do it publicly, and when the fallout happens, when they try to twist what happened, I need someone standing in the room who is not on their payroll and not under their spell. I need someone to just sit there, drink the bad wine, and remember exactly what they see. Graham looked at me for a long moment. He looked at the shadows under my eyes, the tension in my shoulders. He didn't ask for details. He didn't ask for gossip. That was why I picked him. "What time?" he asked. 7 o'clock, I said. "I will drive." "Give me 20 minutes to shower," he said, and turned back into the house. I returned to my car and opened the passenger side glove box. Inside lay the weapon Sasha had constructed. It was a red folder, simple, unassuming, but inside, it contained the forensic autopsy of my relationship with my family. Sasha had been ruthless. The first page was a timeline. Color-coded, blue. My bonuses and raises, red family, emergencies. The correlation was visually undeniable. Behind that were the bank statements, highlighted to show the flow of funds. The Parker Home Solutions Incorporation documents. The loan papers with my forged signature as a guarantor. The metadata from the audio recording Jenna had sent me, proving it was recorded on Tuesday at 9:58 at night, not years ago or out of context. And finally, on a USB drive taped to the inside cover, was the audio file itself, plus the recording of my mother threatening to destroy my career from yesterday. Sasha had handed it to me at lunch, her face grim. "This is not a debate club, Emery," she had said. "This is a nuclear launch. Once you open this folder in that room, there is no going back. You become the villain in their story forever. Are you ready for that?" I touched the cool plastic cover of the folder. I didn't want to be the villain. I just wanted to stop being the victim. "I am ready," I whispered. We arrived at the Silverbrook Event Hall at 6:45. The parking lot was already filling up with mid-range luxury sedans. The building was glowing with uplights, washing the facade in a soft, flattering purple. Graham stepped out of the car. He had cleaned up well, wearing a charcoal suit that fit his broad shoulders. He stood by the car door, waiting for me. "You have the folder?" he asked quietly. "Yes," I said, clutching it against my side like a clutch purse. "Okay," he said. "Lead the way." We walked to the entrance. I didn't go to the coat check. I didn't go to the bar. I walked straight to the audio-visual booth at the back of the ballroom. A young man with a headset was adjusting levels on a mixing board. He looked bored. "Excuse me," I said. "I am the keynote speaker, Emery Parker." He glanced at his clipboard. "Right, Parker. You are on at 7:30. Do you have a PowerPoint?" "No," I said. "I have an audio component." I pulled a sleek black Bluetooth transmitter from my pocket. I had bought it that morning. "I need to pair this with your system," I said. "It is a special testimonial. From the family. It needs to be high fidelity." The technician shrugged. "Sure, whatever." He put the system into pairing mode. I connected my phone. I played a 2-second test clip of white noise. It boomed through the massive speakers suspended from the ceiling. Crisp and clear. "Sounds good," the tech said. "Just hit play when you are ready." "Oh, I will," I said. I looked out at the room. The round tables were set with white linens and elaborate centerpieces of hydrangeas. At the front of the room, on a raised dais, sat the head table. There were 4 seats, my mother, my father, Jenna, and me. I saw them enter. My mother was wearing a gold-sequined gown that caught every photon of light in the room. She was beaming, gripping my father's arm. My father looked uncomfortable in his tuxedo, but he was playing the part of the stoic patriarch. And then there was Jenna. Jenna was the guest of honor. My mother had spun some narrative that Jenna was launching a new charitable initiative tonight, something vague about art and wellness. Jenna was wearing a dress that I recognized instantly. It was a designer piece. Silk chiffon, dusty rose. It cost $2,000. I checked my mental ledger. January 3rd. Transfer $2,000. Reason car repair. I watched my sister float into the room wearing my money. She looked beautiful. She looked happy. She looked completely unburdened by the weight of the lies that paid for the silk on her skin. She saw me near the AV booth and waved, a frantic, happy little wave, as if she hadn't texted me yesterday mocking my legal standing. I didn't wave back. I walked over to Graham, who had secured a small table near the front, just off to the side of the stage. "That is them?" Graham asked, nodding toward the head table. "That is them," I confirmed. "They look normal," Graham observed. "That is the expensive part," I said. "Normal costs a lot of money to fake." My mother spotted me. She detached herself from a group of admirers and marched over. Her smile was fixed, but her eyes were laser sights. "Emery," she hissed, leaning in to air-kiss my cheek so she wouldn't smudge her lipstick. "You are late, and why are you wearing that?" I looked down at my outfit. I was not wearing a gown. I was wearing a black tailored tuxedo suit with sharp lapels and stiletto heels. It was severe. It was professional. It was armor. "Hello, Mother," I said. "You look like a waiter," she whispered harshly. "I told you to wear the blue dress, the one that makes you look softer." "I am not feeling soft tonight," I said. She narrowed her eyes. Then she saw the red folder in my hand. "What is that?" "My speech," I said. "You printed it." She looked relieved. "Good. You memorized the cadence, the wind beneath my wings." "I know exactly what I'm going to say," I assured her. "Good," she said, patting my arm with a force that was almost a slap. "Now, go sit at the head table. People are watching. Smile. Emery. For God's sake, look like you want to be here." She turned and glided away, instantly transforming back into the gracious hostess, laughing at a joke from the mayor's wife. I looked at Graham. "I am going to the table," I said. "Stay here." "I am not going anywhere," Graham said. He sat down and placed his hands on the table. He looked like a statue, a witness. I walked to the head table. Jenna was already seated, scrolling on her phone. "Nice suit," Jenna said without looking up. "Going for the corporate villain vibe." "Something like that," I said. I pulled out the chair next to her. "Did you fix the card thing?" she asked, lowering her voice. "I have to pay the makeup artist tomorrow." I looked at her. I looked at the face that had laughed while my mother called me a bank account. "We will talk about it after the speech," I said. "Whatever," Jenna said, rolling her eyes. "Just don't make it boring. I have to go up after you and I don't want the crowd asleep." The room filled up. Waiters circulated with trays of champagne. The lights dimmed. The spotlight hit the stage. My mother walked up to the microphone. The applause was enthusiastic. She bathed in it. She held up a hand, feigning modesty. "Welcome," she said, her voice trembling with practiced emotion. "Welcome, friends, family, neighbors. Tonight is about community. It is about the bonds that hold us together." I sat in the dark, my hand resting on the red folder. "But before we get to the festivities," my mother continued, "I want to invite my eldest daughter, Emery, to the stage. Emery is well. She is the rock of this family. She works so hard in the city, but she never forgets where she came from. She wanted to say a few words about what family support really means." She gestured toward me. The spotlight swung through the darkness, blinding me for a second. "Emery, darling," she crooned. "Come on up." The room clapped, a polite, warm sound. They saw a successful young woman coming to praise her loving mother. They saw the lie. I stood up. I picked up the red folder. I didn't look at my father. I didn't look at Jenna. I walked up the stairs to the stage. The wood felt solid under my heels. My mother handed me the microphone. She leaned in close, her back to the audience. "Stick to the script," she whispered. "Or else." She stepped back, smiling benevolently, and took her seat at the table. I stood alone at the podium. The light was hot on my face. I could see the faces in the front row. Expectant, bored, happy. I placed the red folder on the podium. I opened it. I did not see the speech about the wind beneath my wings. I saw the spreadsheet. I saw the truth. I reached into my pocket and touched the phone. The Bluetooth was connected. The volume was up. I looked out at the crowd. I looked at the mirror in the back of the room, catching a glimpse of myself. I wasn't wearing the heavy contouring makeup my mother liked. My face was bare, save for a little mascara. My eyes were clear. I was 33 years old. I had paid $384,000 for this moment. I took a breath. "Good evening," I said. My voice did not shake. "My mother is right. I am here to talk about what family support really means." I paused. The room was silent. "For a long time," I continued, "I thought support meant love. I thought it meant showing up. But recently, I checked the records. I looked down at my mother. Her smile faltered. She sensed the shift in the air. And it turns out," I said, "support has a price tag." I turned the page of the folder. $384,000, I said. "That is the price." The room rippled. A few people exchanged confused glances. Was this a joke? Was this part of a donation skit? "That is the amount I have transferred to my family in the last 8 years, I said. While they laughed at me, my mother stood up halfway. "Emery," she warned, her voice audible over the low murmur. "Sit down," I said. It wasn't a request. It was a command, amplified by 5,000 watts of audio power. I looked back at the audience. "I have prepared a presentation," I said. "It is not long. It is just the truth." I tapped the screen of my phone. The first line of the spreadsheet projected in my mind, but the audio was what mattered. My finger hovered over the play button. This was it. The bridge was about to burn, and I was standing in the middle of it with a match. "Jenna asked how long until I cracked," I said into the microphone, my eyes locking on my sister's terrified face. "The answer is 4 minutes and 19 seconds. I pressed the button. To understand why my finger was so steady on that play button, and why I was willing to incinerate my family's reputation in front of the town mayor and the local clergy, you have to rewind 48 hours. You have to go back to the moment I discovered where the money actually went. The spreadsheet was a map, but I was still missing the destination. Sasha and I had identified the vehicle Parker Home Solutions, but a shell company is just a tunnel. Money flows through it. It does not stay there. You do not eat a limited liability company. You do not wear it. My parents were consuming $384,000, and yet their house looked the same. Their cars were 5 years old, and they still complained about the price of milk. It did not add up. I was sitting in Sasha's office on Thursday afternoon, the day after the compliance meeting. Sasha was cross-referencing the bank statements with public records. "It is a classic wash," Sasha said, tapping a pen against her lip. "They funnel the money into the LLC to hide the income from the IRS, claiming it is business revenue. Then they expense everything. But look at this recurring debit." She pointed to a line item I had missed in the sea of data. "Safekeep storage, monthly autopay, $215. "Storage," I frowned. "My parents have a basement, an attic, and a 2-car garage. Why do they need a storage unit?" "Maybe they are hoarding gold bars," Sasha joked, darkly. "Or maybe that is where they keep the bodies." I stared at the address listed on the transaction detail. It was a facility out on the edge of town, near the industrial park, and suddenly, a memory clicked into place. For the last 3 years, my mother had developed a habit of taking long drives on Saturday mornings. She claimed she was visiting a sick aunt in a nursing home 2 towns over. I had never questioned it. I had even paid for her gas. "I am going there," I said, standing up. "Emery, you cannot just break into a storage unit," Sasha warned. "I don't have to break in," I said, pointing to the screen. "Look at the account holder." The storage unit wasn't in my mother's name. It was in Jenna's, and below Jenna's name, listed as the secondary authorized access for billing purposes, because Jenna's credit was terrible, was a name I knew very well. Emery Parker. They had put my name on the lease so they could get the first month free promotion that required a credit check. I drove to the facility in a trance. The sky was gray. threatening snow, matching the color of the concrete landscape. Safekeep Storage was a sprawling complex of orange metal doors and barbed wire fences. I walked into the rental office. The manager was a bored-looking man watching a game show on a small television. "I lost my key," I said, placing my driver's license on the counter. "Unit 412, Emery Parker." He barely looked at me. He typed the name into his computer. "You're listed," he grunted, "but the primary is a Jenna Parker." "My sister," I said. "She sent me to pick up some holiday decorations for the charity gala this weekend." It was a plausible lie. He printed a temporary access code and slid it across the counter. "Don't lose it this time," he said. I drove my car through the gate and navigated the maze of corrugated metal corridors until I found Unit 412. It was a large unit, 10 feet by 20 feet, climate-controlled. I punched in the code. The lock clicked. I grabbed the handle of the roll-up door. It was heavy. I pulled it up, the metal rattling like a chain of bones. The fluorescent light from the hallway spilled inside, illuminating the dark. I stood there, frozen. I had expected junk. I had expected old furniture, maybe some boxes of childhood memorabilia they didn't want to throw away. What I saw was a department store. The unit was packed floor to ceiling. But it wasn't trash. It was merchandise. There were racks of clothes, not thrift store clothes. I saw plastic garment bags from high-end department stores, coats with fur collars, silk blouses, designer denim. Some of them still had the tags on them. I stepped inside, the air smelling of stale cardboard and expensive perfume. I saw a stack of boxes against the wall, kitchen appliances, a dual-basket air fryer, a high-end espresso machine, the kind that costs $800, a stand mixer in a custom color. They were all unopened. I remembered a phone call from 2 years ago. My mother had cried because their toaster oven had sparked and died. She said they were toasting bread in a skillet because they couldn't afford a new one. I had sent them $300 immediately. Here was a brand new convection oven, still in the box, gathering dust. I walked deeper into the cave of secrets. There were suitcases, 3 sets of luxury hard-shell luggage. Jenna had posted photos of her trip to Bali with a backpack, playing the humble traveler role, but here were the suitcases she must have used to transport her real wardrobe. I opened a plastic bin. It was full of handbags. Coach, Michael Kors, Kate Spade, dozens of them. Some looked used, some looked brand new. It hit me with the force of a physical blow. They weren't spending the money on survival. They were spending it on the dopamine hit of acquisition. They were shopping addicts. They bought things to feel rich, to feel successful. And then they hid them here because bringing them home would ruin the narrative of the struggling retirees who needed their daughter's help. This was where my vacations went. This was where my down payment on a house went. It was sitting in a cold metal box, rotting. I felt a wave of nausea, followed by a surge of white-hot rage. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drag everything out into the parking lot and set it on fire. But I was an auditor. And an auditor documents the evidence. I took out my phone. I began to photograph everything. I took close-ups of the price tags. I took wide shots of the volume. I photographed the serial numbers on the electronics. Then, I saw a clipboard hanging on a hook near the back. I walked over to it. It was a chaotic stack of papers, receipts, invoices. I flipped through them, and then I stopped. Buried near the back was a letter. It was on letterhead from a payday loan company, a predatory lender known for interest rates that hovered near triple digits. Notice of default and acceleration. It was addressed to Parker Home Solutions. Dear Ms. Parker, due to your failure to cure the delinquency on loan $9,942, we are accelerating the full balance of $42,000. I read the date. It was from 3 months ago. I scanned the bottom of the letter. There was a section labeled Emergency Contact/Reference. Typed clearly in the box was Emery Parker, relationship daughter/financier. And below that, a handwritten note from the loan officer, client states, daughter will cover balance via quarterly bonus in October. My knees gave out. I sat down on a box of unopened luxury bedding. They hadn't just stolen from me in the past. They had sold my future. They were taking out high-interest loans against bonuses I hadn't even earned yet. They were betting on my performance reviews. I was a racehorse to them. And they were gambling on my splits. If I had lost my job, if I hadn't gotten that bonus, the loan sharks would have come calling. And since my parents had listed me as the financier, the harassment would have landed at my door. I took a picture of the document. My hand was shaking, but the image was clear. I stood up. I had seen enough. I left the unit exactly as I found it. I pulled the metal door down. It slammed shut with a finality that echoed in the empty corridor. I locked it. I walked back to my car. I sat in the driver's seat for 10 minutes, just breathing, in, out, in, out. I had to metabolize the hate. I couldn't let it poison me. I had to turn it into fuel. My phone rang. It was Jenna. I looked at the screen. I debated ignoring it, but I needed to gauge the temperature in the enemy camp. I answered. "What?" I said. "Emery." Jenna's voice was different. It wasn't the arrogant, mocking tone from the text messages. It was small, thin. "Are you really not coming to the gala?" "I never said I wasn't coming," I said. "Mom is freaking out," Jenna whispered. "She says you are ghosting us. She says you are going to ruin her big night. Is that what she says?" "Emery, look," Jenna said, and I heard a tremor in her voice. "I know we joke around, and I know the audio thing was bad, but you have to understand, Mom pushes us. She makes us do things. The credit cards. The loans, she says, it is the only way to keep up appearances. She says you don't mind because you make so much money. And you believed her." I asked. "I didn't want to ask," Jenna admitted. "But listen, the bank called the house today about the mortgage. Mom was screaming at Dad. It is bad. Emery, if you don't restart the transfers, they are going to lose the house." "I know," I said. "So you'll pay it?" Jenna asked, hope creeping into her voice. "Just pay it. Please, I don't want to deal with this. I can't handle them when they are like this." "You can't handle them," I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "Jenna, you are 27 years old. You are not a child. You are an accomplice." "I am not," she protested. "I am just caught in the middle." "No," I said. "You are not in the middle. You are on the payroll. But I have news for you. Jenna, the payroll department is closed." "Don't do anything crazy," Jenna pleaded. "Please, Emery, just come to the gala. Smile, and we can talk about a payment plan or something on Sunday. Just don't embarrass us." "A payment plan," I repeated. The audacity was breathtaking. "Yeah, like maybe half now, half later." I looked at the photos in my phone. The photos of the designer bags. The photos of the loan documents betting on my labor. "Jenna," I said softly, "I am coming to the gala." "Okay," she exhaled. "Okay, good. Wear the blue dress. Mom wants the blue dress. I will see you there," I said. I hung up. Jenna was the weak link. She was terrified. She knew, deep down, that the ride was over, but she was too addicted to the comfort to jump off. She wanted me to fix it because fixing it meant she didn't have to get a job. She didn't have to sell her stash of handbags. I started the car. I wasn't going to fix it, and I wasn't going to scream at them in private, giving them the chance to gaslight me, to cry, to promise they would change while hiding $40,000 in debt behind my back. If I confronted them now, they would lie. They would say the storage unit was for a friend. They would say the loan application was a mistake. They would spin a web so sticky I would spend another 8 years trying to untangle it. No, the only way to kill a lie this big is to expose it to sunlight. Sudden, harsh, blinding sunlight. I drove back to the city. I went to my apartment. I printed the photos of the storage unit. I printed the loan default notice. I added them to the red folder. Then I called Sasha. "I found it," I said. "I found the merchandise, and I found the leverage." "Are you going to use it?" Sasha asked. "I am not just going to use it," I said. I am going to make it the centerpiece. Emery, Sasha said, her voice serious, if you do this at the gala, there is no coming back. You will lose them, all of them. I looked at the picture of the vacuum-sealed espresso machine. I thought about the ramen noodles I had eaten for 5 years. I thought about the anxiety attacks I had suffered wondering if I could pay my rent, because I had sent my family support first. I didn't lose them. Sasha, I said. I never had them. I only had a subscription. Then execute, Sasha said. I hung up. I spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling, rehearsing the moments. I visualized the room. I visualized the silence. I visualized the look on my mother's face when she realized that the obedient daughter had finally learned the most dangerous word in the English language. No. And now, standing on that stage, with the microphone in front of me and the Bluetooth connected, I wasn't shaking. I wasn't afraid. I was just the auditor delivering the final report. The button under my finger was warm. I pressed it. Saturday morning arrived not with sunlight, but with the heavy, suffocating gray of a headache that had nothing to do with dehydration and everything to do with dread. I woke up at 6 o'clock sharp, my body vibrating with the kind of cortisol spike usually reserved for quarter-end board presentations. But today was not about protecting the company's assets. It was about liquidating my own emotional bankruptcy. I lay in bed for 10 minutes, staring at the ceiling of my apartment. It was quiet. The silence felt different today. It wasn't the lonely silence of the last 8 years. It was the breathless silence before a demolition charge goes off. My phone rang at 7:15. I did not need to look at the screen to know who it was. It was the command from headquarters. Good morning, Mother, I answered. I kept my voice flat, devoid of the tremor I felt in my hands. Emery, she said. There was no greeting, no question about how I slept. Her voice was brisk, efficient, the tone of a stage manager directing a prop. I am sending you the final revision of the speech. I changed the opening. It was too dry. I added a part about how you used to wait by the window for your father to come home from work. It plays better to the older crowd. I see, I said. A touching detail. Make sure you emphasize the word sacrifice in the second paragraph, she instructed, and wear the blue dress, the one with the modest neckline. We want you to look successful, but approachable, not corporate. Do not look corporate. Emery. I understand, I said. And Emery? Her voice dropped, losing its managerial crispness and taking on a sharper, colder edge. Do not be late, and do not disappoint me. I have people flying in from the state capital. This night has to be perfect. If you sulk, if you look miserable, everyone will notice. Don't make this about you. It won't be about me, I promised. It will be about the truth. Good, she said, missing the subtext entirely. See you at 7. She hung up. I got out of bed and walked to my desk. I opened my laptop. The first thing I did was delete the email she had just sent without opening it. I did not need her script. I had my own. I navigated to my work email. It was Saturday, but the global compliance servers were always listening. I clicked Compose New to Stonegate Meridian Advisory, Human Resources, Legal Compliance. From Emery Parker, Senior Risk Analyst. Subject Preemptive Disclosure. Potential External Harassment. I typed steadily, my fingers moving with the precision of a pianist playing a funeral march. Dear Compliance Team, following my previous report regarding anonymous allegations, I am writing to formally document that I am currently in a dispute with extended family members regarding financial boundaries and potential fraud. I have reason to believe that further attempts to damage my professional reputation may occur in the coming days as a retaliation tactic. Please note that any communication received from individuals claiming to be my parents or representing Parker Home Solutions should be treated as hostile and potentially libelous. I am taking legal steps to resolve this matter privately, but I wanted to ensure the firm is aware of the context should any further tips be submitted. Regards, Emery Parker. I hit send. It was a shield. If my mother tried to call my boss on Monday claiming I was crazy, This email would already be in the system, framing her call as exactly what it was: vengeance. Next, I picked up my phone and texted Sasha. Protocol 0. I typed. Sasha replied instantly. I am on standby. If I don't hear from you by 9 o'clock tonight with the code word clear, I am emailing the full dossier to your father's union representative, the bank fraud department, and the local newspaper tip line. Understood. I replied. This was the failsafe. If they managed to stop me, if they dragged me off that stage, if I lost my nerve, the truth would still get out. I had rigged the building to blow, whether I was inside it or not. I spent the next hour getting ready. I did not put on the blue dress. The blue dress was soft. The blue dress was for the obedient daughter who wrote checks and apologized for existing. That woman was dead. I put on the black tuxedo suit. The trousers were sharp, tailored to within an inch of their life. The jacket had satin lapels that gleamed like oil. I wore a white silk shirt underneath, buttoned to the collar, no jewelry, no softening touches. I pulled my hair back into a severe, low bun. I looked in the mirror. I did not look like a charity case. I did not look like a victim. I looked like an executioner. At 6:30, my phone buzzed. Graham was outside. I grabbed the red folder from my desk. It was heavy, not just with paper, but with the weight of 8 years of betrayal. I walked out of my apartment and locked the door. Graham was leaning against his sedan, his arms crossed. He was wearing a dark suit. His tie loosened slightly. When he saw me, he straightened up. His eyes went to my face, then down to the red folder in my hand. You look ready for war, he said quietly. It is a gala, Graham, I said, walking past him to the passenger door. Same thing. He got in the driver's seat and started the engine. He didn't turn on the radio. The silence in the car was thick, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Graham was a man who understood that some moments didn't need a soundtrack. You sure about this? He asked as we merged onto the highway. Once you do this, Emery, you know what happens. The town is small. People talk. Let them talk, I said, looking out the window at the passing streetlights. They have been talking about me for years. My mother has been telling them I am cold, distant, selfish. Tonight, I am just going to give them the citations. My phone buzzed in my lap. Then again, then a third time. I looked down. Aunt Linda. Your mother says you are acting strange. Don't you dare ruin her night. She worked so hard for this. Cousin Mike. Hey, Em. Heard you might be stressed. Just chill tonight. Okay, Mom says you owe them a lot. Don't be ungrateful. Uncle Robert. Family supports family. Remember that. I felt a bitter laugh bubble up in my throat. My mother had been busy. She had spent the day salting the battlefield, calling every relative, planting the seeds of Emery is unstable, so that if I tried to speak, everyone would view it through the lens of my alleged breakdown. She got to them, I said, reading the texts. She told them I owe her. Do you? Graham asked. I calculated the interest. I said, if anything, she owes me a refund on my childhood. I turned the phone to Do Not Disturb. We pulled into the parking lot of the Silverbrook Event Hall. It was glowing in the dark, a beacon of suburban pretension. The valet stand was crowded. I saw people I knew, girls I had gone to high school with. Neighbors who had watched me grow up. They were all smiling, dressed in polyester blends and rented tuxedos, ready to celebrate the wonderful Darlene Parker. Showtime, Graham said, killing the engine. Graham, I said, my hand on the door handle. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, he said. Wait until we get out alive. We walked to the entrance. The air was cold, biting at my exposed ankles, but I didn't feel it. My blood was running hot. We entered the ballroom. The noise hit us first, a wall of chatter, clinking glass, and a jazz quartet playing a neutered version of a pop song in the corner. The room smelled of chicken cordon bleu and expensive perfume. It was a perfect stage. My mother had outdone herself. The centerpieces were massive. The lighting was flattering. It was a beautiful, shiny lie. I saw her immediately. She was near the center of the room, holding court. She saw me, and her smile faltered for a fraction of a second when she saw the suit. But she recovered instantly. She was a professional. She glided over, her arms open wide. "Emery!" she cried out, loud enough for the table of local realtors to hear. "My baby is here." She pulled me into a hug, to the room. It looked like a warm, maternal embrace, but up close, her grip was iron. Her fingers dug into the fabric of my jacket. She pulled me close, her cheek against mine. "You wore the suit," she whispered into my ear. Her voice was venomous. "I told you to wear the dress. You look like a man." "I am comfortable, Mother," I said, pulling back slightly, but she held on. "You are shaking," she lied. "You are nervous. Good. Listen to me. Read the speech exactly as I wrote it. If you go off script, if you embarrass me in front of the mayor, I swear to God, Emery, I will never forgive you. You will be dead to us." "I think we passed that point about $300,000 ago," I whispered back. She stiffened. She pulled back, looking at me with confused, angry eyes. "What did you say?" "I said you have lipstick on your teeth." I lied. She immediately panicked, her hand flying to her mouth, her eyes darting to the nearby guests. It was a petty distraction, but it bought me the second I needed to step away. "Go sit down," she hissed, "and smile." I walked to the head table. I sat next to Jenna. Graham took his post at the witness table near the front. I placed the red folder on the white tablecloth. It looked violent against the pristine linen. "You didn't wear the dress," Jenna noted. Taking a sip of white wine, her hand was shaking. She looked terrified. "No," I said. "Are you going to do it?" she whispered, leaning in. "Emery, please. Dad is literally sweating through his shirt. Look at him." I looked at my father. He was staring at his plate, moving a green bean around with his fork. He looked smaller than I remembered. He looked like a man who knew the bill was coming due. "He should be sweating," I said. The lights dimmed. The room went quiet. My mother took the stage first. She gave her opening remarks. She was charming. She was funny. She told a story about how she had saved money in a cookie jar to buy Jenna's first violin. It was a lie I had paid for that violin with my babysitting money. But the crowd ate it up. They nodded. They wiped away tears. Then, she turned to me. "And now," she said, her voice trembling with manufactured pride, "I want to invite my daughter, Emery, to share a few words. Emery is the success story of this family, but she knows that no one succeeds alone." She gestured to me. The spotlight swung. It hit me like a physical force. I stood up. I picked up the red folder. I walked to the stairs. Every step was a decision. Step 1, anger. Step 2, clarity. Step 3, justice. I reached the podium. My mother handed me the microphone. "Don't mess this up," she mouthed, her eyes hard as flint. She stepped back into the shadows. I placed the folder on the lectern. I looked out at the sea of faces. 100 people, witnesses. I saw Graham in the front row. He gave me a barely perceptible nod. I reached into my pocket and touched the Bluetooth transmitter. It was connected. The green light was solid. My mother expected a tribute. The crowd expected a heartwarming anecdote. I looked down at the script she had sent me. The paper crumpled in my pocket. I left it there. I opened the red folder. The spreadsheet lay on top, the numbers bold and damning. "Good evening," I said. My voice echoed through the hall, amplified, distorted slightly by the speakers. "My mother told you that no one succeeds alone. She is right." I paused. The room was so quiet I could hear the ice melting in the water glasses. "I did not succeed alone," I said. "I succeeded in spite of the anchor I have been dragging for 8 years. My mother's head snapped up. "I have a story to tell you tonight," I continued, my hand hovering over the play button on my phone screen. "It is not about a cookie jar. It is about $384,000. I saw my father stand up. I saw Jenna cover her face with her hands. "And I don't want you to take my word for it," I said. I want you to hear it from the source. I pressed play. Good evening, I said again, my voice smooth, practiced, and projecting clearly to the back of the room where the exit signs glowed a dull, inviting red. I looked down at the podium. The red folder was open. The light from the lectern lamp washed over the spreadsheet, illuminating the rows of black numbers that represented my life. I looked up. I smiled. It was the smile my mother had taught me, polite, restrained, and completely detached from the soul. My mother is right, I began, pitching my voice to be warm, almost affectionate. Tonight is a celebration of community. It is a celebration of the people who build us up. We often talk about the concept of family support as if it is an abstract thing, a feeling, a sentiment that hangs in the air like the perfume of these lilies. I gestured to the massive floral arrangement on the edge of the stage. We talk about love, I continued. We talk about sacrifice, and looking at my parents tonight, sitting there in their best clothes, surrounded by the friends they cherish, it is easy to see the picture of a perfect, supportive family unit. I paused. I saw my mother's shoulders relax. She let out a breath she had been holding. She picked up her wineglass and took a sip, her eyes softening. She thought I was doing it. She thought the good soldier had fallen back in line, terrified by the threat of being cut off. She thought her intimidation tactics had worked, just as they had worked when I was 7, and 17, and 27. I let the silence stretch for 3 seconds, just enough time for the comfort to settle in, just enough time for them to feel safe. But, I said, the word hung in the air, hard, sharp. My mother lowered her glass. But as a risk analyst, I said, my tone shifting from warm to clinical, I have learned that you cannot quantify love. You cannot put a metric on affection. However, you can quantify support, especially when that support is a one-way transaction. I looked directly at the head table. I locked eyes with my father. He blinked, confusion clouding his face. I want to talk about the cost of that support, I said, because for the last 8 years, the cost has been specific, it has been calculated, and tonight, I think it is important that we acknowledge the receipt. I looked down at the spreadsheet. $384,000, I said. I spoke the number slowly, enunciating every syllable. $384,000. The reaction was immediate. It started as a ripple, a few gasps, the sound of a fork hitting a plate a little too hard. Then, it became a wave. People turned to each other. I saw Mrs. Higgins, the town librarian, mouth the number to her husband with wide eyes. That is the amount I have transferred to the Parker family accounts in the last 96 months, I said. My mother tried to stand up. Her chair scraped against the parquet floor, a harsh, wooden shriek that cut through the quiet. She made it halfway up, her face a mask of furious panic. But then she looked around. She saw 50 pairs of eyes fixed on her. She saw the mayor watching. She saw the pastor watching. If she stormed the stage now, she would look unhinged. She would look guilty. She was trapped by the very social cage she had built for herself. She sat back down, but her eyes were screaming at me. Stop. Stop right now. I did not stop. You might be wondering, I continued, addressing the audience as if I were presenting a quarterly earnings report. Where that money went, perhaps you think it went to medical bills for a sick relative, or perhaps to save a family business from bankruptcy. I flipped a page in the red folder. I thought so too, I said. When I sent $4,000 for a transmission repair on a car that was never fixed, I thought I was helping. When I sent $8,000 for a roof that never leaked, I thought I was keeping my parents warm. When I sent $5,000 for my sister's tuition for a degree she never enrolled in, I thought I was investing in her future. Jenna flinched. She was gripping her water glass so hard, I thought the crystal might shatter in her hand. Her face had drained of all color, leaving her makeup looking stark and painted on, like a doll left out in the rain. She stared at the table, refusing to look at the audience, refusing to look at me. But the data tells a different story, I said. The data tells a story of a storage unit on the edge of town, rented in my name without my consent, filled with $40,000 of unopened designer appliances and luxury handbags. A murmur went through the room, a real, audible sound of shock. This wasn't just money. This was hoarding. This was sickness. The data tells a story, I went on, my voice rising slightly over the murmur, of a shell company called Parker Home Solutions, an entity created solely to hide assets and take out commercial loans, loans that listed me as the guarantor, loans that bet on my bonuses before I even earned them. I looked at my mother. She was shaking her head violently now. She was mouthing words at me. Liar, you liar. I am not a daughter to these people, I said, gesturing to the table where they sat like wax figures melting under the heat. I am an asset class. I am a resource to be mined until the vein runs dry. And when I tried to close the mine this week, when I tried to set a boundary, I picked up the paper with the email I had printed out the anonymous tip to my compliance department. I was reported to my employer for embezzlement, I said. An anonymous tip, sent hours after I cut off the credit cards, an attempt to destroy my career because I refused to pay for another vacation I wasn't invited to. My mother stood up. This time, she didn't care about the mayor. She didn't care about the pastor. She slammed her hand on the table. That is enough, she shouted. Her voice cracked, shrill and desperate. She is lying. She is having a breakdown. The room went dead silent. All eyes swung to Darlene Parker. She is sick, my mother screamed, pointing a trembling finger at me. She has been under so much pressure at work. She doesn't know what she is saying. She is off her medication. I stood perfectly still at the podium. I let her scream. I let her show them exactly who she was. I am not on medication, Mother, I said into the microphone. My voice was calm, terrifyingly steady against her hysteria. And I have never been more clear-headed in my life. You are ungrateful, she yelled, tears of rage streaming down her face. After everything we did for you, we gave you life. We gave you a home, and this is how you repay us, by humiliating us. I am not humiliating you, I said. I am just reading the ledger. It is a lie, she shrieked. Tell them, Gordon, tell them she is lying. My father looked up. He looked at me, then at the crowd, then at his wife. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He was a man who had spent 30 years letting his wife write the script, and now that the script was burning, he had no lines left. Gordon, she hissed. Sit down, Darlene, a voice said from the front row. It was Graham. He hadn't stood up. He hadn't shouted. He just spoke the words with a quiet authority that cut through the noise. My mother looked at him, stunned. I am very clear tonight, I said, drawing the attention back to the stage. I have the bank statements here. I have the loan documents. I have the photos of the storage unit. Anyone who wants to see the truth can come up here and look at this folder. I tapped the red folder. But, I said softly, leaning into the microphone, the money is not the worst part. I looked at Jenna. She was crying now, silent tears dripping onto her silk dress. I could have forgiven the money, I said. I could have forgiven the greed. I could have walked away and just called it a loss. But 2 days ago, my sister sent me an audio file. Jenna's head snapped up. Her eyes went wide with genuine terror. She shook her head. No, please. She sent it to me as a joke, I said. She was sitting at the dinner table with my parents. They didn't know the phone was recording. They were talking about me. They were talking about the daughter who pays their mortgage. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. The screen was bright in the dim hall. They weren't discussing how to thank me, I said. They weren't discussing how much they loved me. My mother froze. She knew. She remembered the conversation. She remembered the wine. She remembered the cruelty. They were laughing, I said. The word hung there. Laughing. They called me a machine, I said. They called me a weeping ATM. My mother said, I paused, looking directly at Darlene. She said, "She thinks we are proud of her. We are proud of her deposits." A gasp went through the room. It was a physical reaction, a collective intake of breath. That was the line. That was the sentence that turned a financial dispute into a moral atrocity. "That is not true," my mother screamed, stumbling away from the table, moving toward the stage. "It is fake," she doctored it. "I have the metadata," I said calmly. "It was recorded Tuesday at 9:58 p.m. I held the phone up to the microphone. "I didn't want to believe it," I said to the crowd. "I listened to it 3 times, and now, I think you should hear it too." My thumb hovered over the screen. My mother was moving now. She was rushing toward the stairs of the stage, her gold dress tangling around her legs, her face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated fear. She wasn't running to hug me. She was running to silence me. "Don't you dare!" she screamed, lunging for the stairs. "Emery, don't you dare play that!" The room held its breath. The mayor was standing up. The waiters had stopped moving. Graham was watching me, his face grim and proud. I looked at my mother, clawing her way up the first step, desperate to stop the sound of her own voice from destroying her illusion. "Watch me," I whispered, and I pressed play. The audio erupted from the speakers with crystal clarity. It was not a grainy, muffled recording. It was high definition. The sound of silverware clinking against china echoed through the silent ballroom like gunshots. Then came the laughter. It was a wet, throaty sound that I knew better than my own heartbeat. "She thinks we are proud of her," my mother's voice boomed, filling every corner of the room. "She honestly thinks that every time she calls, she waits for it, like a dog waiting for a treat." My mother froze on the second step of the stage. Her hand was outstretched, reaching for me, but the sound of her own voice stopped her cold. She looked like a statue of a saint that had just cracked down the middle. "Come on, Dar," my father's voice rumbled, deep and dismissive. "Don't be mean." "The girl tries—" "I am not being mean," the recorded Darlene Parker retorted, and the slur in her voice was unmistakable to everyone in the room. "I am being realistic. We are proud of her. Gordon, we are proud of her deposits." The laughter that followed was the worst part. It wasn't just my parents. It was Jenna. Her high, breathless giggle cut through the bass of my father's chuckle. "She is obedient," my father's voice continued. "That is her whole personality. You tell her to jump. She asks how high. You tell her the family needs money. She asks where to send the check. How long until she cracks?" Jenna's voice asked. "Who cares?" My father replied. "Pass the potatoes." The recording ended. The silence that followed was heavy, absolute, and suffocating. It was not the polite silence of a listening crowd. It was the horrified silence of a community watching a murder. For 5 seconds, no one moved, no one breathed. The mayor was staring at his shoes. The pastor looked sick. My Aunt Linda had her hand over her mouth, her eyes wide and fixed on my mother. Then, my mother screamed, "Fake!" She lunged up the final step. Her face twisted into a snarl that shattered the benevolent matriarch mask she had worn for decades. She grabbed the podium, her nails digging into the wood. "It is fake!" she shrieked, turning to the crowd. "It is she made it up. She is using technology to frame us. Don't you see? She is sick." She looked at me, her eyes wild. "Tell them you made it up. Tell them—" I did not step back. I did not flinch. I looked at her with the cool, detached curiosity of a scientist observing a specimen in a jar. "It is not fake," I said into the microphone. My voice was calm, contrasting violently with her hysteria. "I have the metadata report here, verified by a forensic digital analyst. The file was created on Tuesday at 9:58 p.m. on an iPhone 14 Pro. The location tag is 4112 Maple Drive." The dining room, I opened the red folder to the page Sasha had prepared. "And," I continued, "I have the text message Jenna sent attached to the file. You need to hear this. Don't freak out." I looked down at Jenna. She was still at the table, her head in her hands, her body shaking. "Is it fake? Jenna?" I asked. Jenna didn't answer. She just sobbed, a raw, ugly sound that confirmed everything. My mother tried to grab the microphone from me. I pulled it away. "I am not done," I said. "Get off the stage," my father yelled from the table. He was standing now, his face red, his fists clenched. "You have said enough. You are ruining this family." "You ruined this family 3 years ago," I said, looking directly at him. "When you took out a commercial loan for $200,000 against the house and forged my name as the guarantor." A gasp rippled through the room again. This was the final nail. Emotional abuse was one thing, financial fraud was another. I picked up the loan documents from the folder. I held them up. "This is the loan agreement for Parker Home Solutions," I said. "A company that does not exist. A company that produces nothing. My parents took out this loan to fund a lifestyle they could not afford. To buy the designer clothes in the storage unit. To buy the illusion of success." I pointed to the spreadsheet projected on the screen of my mind. "The monthly payment on this loan is $2,150, I said. "My monthly family support transfer was $2,200 for 3 years. I haven't been helping my parents with groceries. I have been servicing their secret debt so they wouldn't lose the house they pretended to own outright." I looked at the crowd. "I was not a daughter," I said. "I was a laundering operation." "That is a lie," my mother screamed, but her voice was losing power. It was thin, reedy, desperate. She looked out at the audience, begging for an ally. "Linda, Mike, tell her we are good parents." Aunt Linda stood up slowly, but she didn't look at me. She looked at my mother. "Darlene," Linda said, her voice shaking. "Did you really say that? Did you really call her a deposit?" "We were drinking," my mother stammered. "It was a joke. You know how we joke." "It didn't sound like a joke," Cousin Mike said from the back table. He sounded disgusted. "It sounded like you were laughing at her." The room was turning. The tide had shifted. The illusion of the saintly Parker family had dissolved, revealing the rot underneath. My mother looked around. Realizing she had lost the room, she turned back to me, her eyes full of venom. "You ungrateful little brat," she hissed, low enough that the microphone barely caught it. "You think you are so smart. You think you are free. You are nothing without us. We made you." "You didn't make me," I said. "You build me." Jenna suddenly stood up. She wiped her face, her mascara smeared in dark streaks across her cheeks. She looked at me, then at Mom, then at the crowd. She looked like a trapped animal chewing off its own leg. "I didn't know," Jenna cried out. "I didn't know about the loan. I just wanted to show Emery what you guys were saying." She looked at me, her eyes pleading. "Emery, tell them I sent it to warn you I'm on your side." I looked at my sister, the sister I had paid tuition for, the sister I had bought cars for, the sister who had sat at that table and laughed. "No, Jenna," I said softly into the microphone. The room went dead quiet to hear the verdict. "You didn't send it to warn me. If you wanted to warn me, you would have called. You would have stopped them. You would have left the room." Jenna flinched. "You sent it because you were bored," I said. "You sent it because you wanted drama. You wanted to see me cry. You wanted to be the one to light the match and watch the explosion." "That's not true," Jenna sobbed. "I just wanted to see your reaction." "Exactly," I said. "You wanted entertainment." I leaned closer to her, my voice dropping to a register of absolute 0. "You didn't send it to save me, Jenna," I said. "You sent it to burn me." Jenna collapsed back into her chair, burying her face in her hands. I turned back to the microphone. I looked at the red folder. I closed it. The sound of the cover snapping shut was the only sound in the room. "When I heard that recording," I said, addressing the silent crowd, "I sent my family a text message. It was 3 words. I looked at my mother. She was standing there, defeated, her gold dress looking like a cheap costume. I told them, 'Then watch me.'" I took a deep breath. Tonight, I said. Was the watch part? I picked up the folder. As of this moment, I announced, all financial support to the Parker family is terminated. The credit cards are closed. The recurring transfers are canceled. My legal team has already flagged the Parker Home Solutions account for fraud investigation. My father groaned, putting his head on the table. He knew what that meant. It meant the end. I will not be answering calls, I said. I will not be answering texts. Any further communication regarding money, threats, or defamation will be handled by my attorney. I looked at my mother one last time. You said I was an investment, I said. Well, consider this a divestiture. I turned and walked away from the podium. I didn't run. I didn't rush. I walked down the stairs with the steady, rhythmic click of my heels on the wood. My mother didn't try to stop me. She was too busy watching her social standing evaporate into the air conditioning. Graham was waiting for me at the edge of the stage. He stood up and offered me his arm. Ready, he asked. Ready, I said. We walked down the center aisle, the parting of the Red Sea. People stared at me. Some looked terrified. Some looked impressed, but no one looked at me with pity. That was all I wanted. I had burned the pity along with the checks. We walked out the double doors, leaving the bright lights and the suffocating scent of lilies behind. The night air outside was cold and clean. It smelled of snow and asphalt. It smelled like freedom. I got into Graham's car. He started the engine. Where to? He asked. Anywhere but here, I said. We drove in silence for a long time, but it wasn't the heavy silence of before. It was a light, airy silence. The kind of silence that comes after a fever breaks. That night was the end of the story, but it was the beginning of my life. In the months that followed, the fallout was exactly as Sasha had predicted. My parents lost the house. The bank foreclosed on Parker Home Solutions. They moved into a small apartment 2 towns over. They tried to smear me on social media for a few weeks, but the recording I had played at the gala had been captured on a dozen cell phones. The truth was out there. They were pariahs in their own kingdom. I didn't see them. I blocked their numbers. I blocked their emails. I didn't go to Thanksgiving. I didn't go to Christmas. I went to therapy. I sat in a chair and unpacked 33 years of conditioning. I learned that no is a complete sentence. I learned that love is not a transaction. I bought a house, a real house, with a garden and a kitchen I actually cooked in. I bought it in my name only. No guarantors, no hidden debts, just me and the bank. I started a blog, anonymous at first, called The Ledger of Boundaries. I wrote about financial abuse. I wrote about the guilt of the good daughter. Thousands of people read it. Thousands of people wrote back saying, "Me too. I kept my job. In fact, I was promoted." It turns out that having a spine of steel makes you a very good risk analyst. Jenna tried to reach out once. 6 months later, she sent a letter asking for coffee. She said she was sorry. She said she was working as a receptionist and it was hard. She asked if I could maybe help with a deposit on a car. I didn't reply. I shredded the letter. I am not angry anymore. Anger is expensive. It takes energy to maintain. I prefer to invest my energy elsewhere. I still have the red folder. It sits in a safe in my home office. I keep it not as a weapon, but as a reminder. A reminder of the price I paid for my freedom. $384,000. It was a lot of money. It was a fortune. But standing here today, in my own kitchen, making coffee for Graham while the sun comes up over a life that finally belongs to me, I know the truth. It was a bargain. I didn't lose a family. I just stopped paying for a lie. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from today. So please drop your location in the comments below and let me know what you would have done in my shoes. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the Leona Revenge Stories channel. Hit that like button and smash the hype button so this story can reach even more people who need to hear it.